Thanks for joining us today at Harvestime University. The class we're going to teach now is called Development Team, the Roles and the Responsibilities. One of the mistakes that a lot of building committees make around the country when they start looking at designing a new facility is they're under the impression often that, well, all we need to do is hire an architect and, they'll take care of everything. Well, I've built a couple homes for Kim and I, and that was somewhat the case. We hired the architect, and he took care of the lighting details and the plumbing and the heating and air conditioning. It's a pretty simple project because it's just a relatively simple little house. But, when you start talking about multi-million-dollar church facilities, things get a little bit more complicated. And I want to make sure that as you move forward in developing facilities for your ministry, that you're fully aware, up front of the development team, who all is involved in putting together, the design drawings and all the detailed work that goes into designing the facility before you get a building permit. Because a lot of times churches, as I mentioned earlier, they'll go in thinking, well, all we really need is an architect. So you put together an architectural selections team, or however you want to do that. My recommendation is you take the course that we have here at Harvestime University on how to interview, select, and hire an architect. That'll benefit you a lot when it comes time to looking at hiring an architect. But a lot of times they think that the architect's fee, and folks, I've seen architects' fees from 5% to 13%. And you kind of get what you pay for, And I'm not saying that you always go for the expensive guys, because that's not necessarily, the best case. But you want to make sure that you're not just thinking that the architect's fee alone is going to get you to a building permit, because there's a lot of other things that come up. But if you're not aware of it, then they're constantly coming up and surprising you, like, let's say a soils engineer. You look at the well, I thought you covered that. No, the architect didn't cover that, so now you need to hire a soils engineer, and a civil engineer, a landscape designer. The list goes on and on. So our goal here in this particular class is to introduce you to, the different members of a development team, give you a little bit of their job description, so that as you move forward, you'll know exactly what to expect, okay? So I think what we'll do is we'll start off by just kind of listing, on a typical project that I would develop, who would be involved in that project. It always starts out, with the owner's representative. This is somebody who speaks on behalf of the church. Normally, you have a long-range planning task force. You have a chairman of the long-range planning task force. But we need to have one person who represents the church leadership, the staff, the elders, and the congregation, that basically communicates with the project manager. And it would be better if that person, first off, had time to do it, because it can take quite a bit of time. And it would be very good if they had experience in developing facilities. Now, going out and building a multi-million-dollar facility for a church, not too many people have done that. So it doesn't have to be that kind of experience, but just a general familiarization with architecture and construction, would be very, very helpful. So we need to be sure that there's an owner's representative, so that all direction from the church elders and the church staff, church leadership, funnels through one person, and that person communicates with your project manager. In the early days, I didn't have this, and I would be taking direction from 15 different people out on the job site. Well, that could be really interesting when one gal comes out and says, paint the building pink. This actually happened. That wasn't the outside of the building. It was a fellowship hall. But they came out and said, paint it pink. It was kind of a flamingo color. And I had her sign the back of the swatch, because I thought that's going to look terrible. But she was in charge of the colors and the furnishings team, and I was told to do what she said. So I had her sign the back of it. Well, I painted this whole room pink. It was terrible. Mary Kay would get sick. I mean, it was absolutely terrible. And the head of the building committee, a fellow named Pete, came over and saw it, and he thought, boy, that better be a primer. And when I said, no, this is it. I showed him the swatch, and I showed him the gal's signature on the back, and he kind of stormed out of the room. But when we came back Monday, it was all painted kind of an eggshell white. They painted the whole thing. So anyway, it's always important to get your direction Okay, the liaison between the architect and the development team, the contractor, and everybody needs to be one person. So, first person we're going to talk about is the project representative from the church. We're going to talk about the project manager. What are the roles and responsibilities of a project manager? We've got fundraising consultants. I'll just go through the list here. Bank or lender, you want them on board right up front, so we make sure that whatever is designed we can actually afford. So it's like getting pre-qualified for a house or pre-qualified for even a car loan, only we're getting pre-qualified for a multi-million-dollar facility. It's always good to have the bank on board early. Then we have, of course, the architect. We have structural engineer, civil engineer, the electrical designer, mechanical designer, looking at the heating, venting, air conditioning, plumbing. Landscape designer, we have a sound, video, and lighting consultant that's going to design those systems. A geotechnical engineer, another name for that is a soils engineer. The interior designer, if you're going with a big commercial kitchen, for all you Baptists out there, you got a big commercial kitchen to feed everybody. We have kitchen designers, fire sprinkler, and a fire alarm system. We have specialty designers for bookstores and cafes, for security and video surveillance. Themed environments. We want the children's area to look like Disneyland, and there's a whole bunch of groups out there now doing that. Environmental graphics is a fancy name for signs, and then of course if any of this is going to actually turn into reality, we have to have a builder on board. So let's take those one by one, and we'll kind of walk through the roles and responsibilities. Again, the first one, you know, is your representative. The person that represents the church is the church liaison, and we've kind of covered that. So the picture you're looking at here is a friend of mine named Fred Rose. Fred was the church representative for Heartland Vineyard Church out in Cedar Falls, Iowa. Fred has a construction company. He's very familiar with construction, and we just hit it off great. We had a great time because he was very knowledgeable as to what we were going through, and it was great to have him as the liaison whenever it came up with decisions that had to be made, getting things done in a timely manner so that decisions from the church leadership and their building team, their task force, didn't delay construction in any way. So Fred was just great at that. The project manager is a different role. That's basically what I do with churches all around the country, is I manage the project from the very start to the very end. And with projects that we do here at Harvestime, the very start is actually sitting down and doing a long-range strategic ministry plan, looking at your goals and your mission and your purpose and your vision and your core values, and determining, you know, what God's highest and best is for you, and where you want to be 20 years from now. So we start with that, and then we look at land acquisition, and we look at developing the entire facility all the way through several months after you've moved in to the new building, making sure that everything's operating correctly, and warranties are all in place, and the sound people know how to run the sound system, and the nursery people know where the nursery is, and just getting you all settled in your new facility. So the responsibility of the project manager is pretty big, because we're going to manage the process from the strategic plan all the way till after you move in, making sure that the goals and the objectives and the needs of the ministry are always at the forefront of the project. It's real easy for people to lose sight, you know, of what the goal is here, and the goal is to provide you with a tool for ministry. So that's the project manager's role. So your project manager will work closely with your church leadership and is responsible for the entire project. He or she will oversee all the work to ensure that the best interests of the church are at the forefront of all involved. Please do not make your architect the project manager. We see this all across the country. Very common mistake that churches make. They think, well, you know, the architect should do that. Well, architects are not developers, and architects are not project managers. They play a very important role in designing the building, make sure we've covered fire, life, and safety issues, that everything works, everything's aesthetically pleasing. But they're not qualified to manage the project start to finish. There's a lot of oversight that people have to have over the architect, and if nobody's watching the architect, then well, you know, the statistics are that 60% of all church projects in the United States will end up 30% or more over budget when they go out to bid.